Hey guys, it's M4J here, and welcome back, kind of, to OpenTTD. This is no longer the Jeffries Network. That series is now dead. 255 episodes, I think it was in the end. But I think it lived its life, and it was time for a reboot and a refresh. This, very creatively named, is the M4J Network. I guess it goes into part of the rebranding. You know, Jeffries became M4J. So why not make all the series go that way as well? This map might look familiar to you. Anyone who has been on m4jmedia.com and been on the downloads pages, you will recognize this map. This is the map that was used for the Jeffries network. It's the exact same map with a couple of additions since the end of the last episode. But besides that, it is essentially the same map. And by a couple of additions, I mean I rebuilt some of the high speed. You can see over here, I've made the curve a little bit more gentle rather than this sharp curve that we had here. I've added a ton of waypoints here, there, and everywhere to help with the speed limit changes, which will be coming up in an upcoming episode. And I've done some other little bits and bobs all around the place. This box that I've drawn here is the Greater Guard City boundary, the official Greater Guard City boundary. It may move inwards and outwards as the series goes on. To give you some context, Renston Interchange is there within the boundary. Same with Shoreham Junction, which is there. The only one, really, the main stations that aren't. Great Wintfield is there, the town, so the airport is kind of there, I think, looking at it. Wenfingfield is obviously just up here. And then also to the north, Gunway Bridge is about, actually Gunway Brewery is about where the boundary is on the north. And the airport, Pumpingford, is right the way up there. So that technically doesn't count as being part of Guard City anymore. I hadn't realised just how far out Pumpingford Airport was. I'm also very tempted, you can see here the main Guard City Great Northern Line, can't get my words out. Sort of snakes around this way. I was tempted at one point just to make it straighter and go through this little gap here and around there. I think I have made it so that the curves here are quite gentle though. And actually the Guard City Great Northern Line up as far as Honningville is done. It's completely finished. All the waypoints have been added. The speed limit graph has been created, which you can check out on the interactions page of m4jmedia.com, and I'm going to plug that website a lot. It was my university project to create that website. There's still a lot of features that are unfinished on there, so you will have to excuse those. But in terms of name suggestions, in terms of other forms of interactivity, particularly with the OpenTTD series, there's lots and lots of stuff on there that you guys can check out. Plus the download page where you can download the map as it was at the start of this episode. So what is this series going to be? I'm not going to do any building in this episode. If you want to see building, skip over to episode 2. If you want to know what this series is about, keep listening. Essentially, it's a follow-on. It's a sequel to the original Jeffries network. Except this time, we're going to be remaining in this map for as long as the game allows. We're going to be building a vast network using the existing infrastructure, which I'll come on to again in a second. And we're going to go through the time periods again. We kind of skipped over them in the past. I did say when I first started this particular map that we would start in the steam age and work up, and I ended up skipping to electric pretty quickly. Now I'm not saying we're going to go back to steam necessarily, particularly as I don't want to de-electrify all of the main lines that have been electrified, because that will take a long time. What I mean by we're going to use all train types is particularly out of Guard City and also out of Bar City, which is down in the southeast corner of the map. We're going to be using the old generation DMUs and EMUs where possible. And in some cases we're going to be using cascading as well. I have been doing some research on the future of OpenTTD, and one of the things that I have seen, which I am really excited about, which is already in some patches, it's not in Joker's patch just yet, and I'm not sure how long it will be before that will be the case. Whether it will be or not, I don't know. I'll need to ask Joker about it. But one of the key core updates that's coming soon is the ability to have locomotives shunt, couple and uncouple to different consists. That will be perfect for my idea of cascading, because you have a train sat in a siding. Let's say it's an electric multiple unit that is being transported over non-electrified lines. It sits in the siding, a diesel couples up to it and takes it along the route to where it needs to be. Gets to the other end, decouples, and then that EMU can start operating on that new line. That's something that I'm really excited about. Something else which I'm really excited about, which is part of Joker's patch, and in fact I have built an example of it up here, coming out of Gronwell Superior. This might look a little bit different now. The high-speed network has been rebuilt accordingly to match what we're trying to do here. And if I come over here, we have underwater tunnels. They are now a thing. They have to be placed between 5 and 8 tiles away from the water's edge. So you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's the 5th. And then over here it goes up to 7 or 8, whatever this is. And yeah, we have underwater tunnels now, which I think is also really cool. I'm not quite sure of the logistics, how it works, whether it will work on every example. I think there was a bug when it was first created where if you then did work on the land here, it would mess up the tunnel slightly, which you might have to end up rebuilding. But since I'm not really planning on doing much else here in terms of changing the landscape, I think it's pretty cool that we've got this. And I'm actually a big fan of the approaches to Gronwell now. It's a shame that the town itself isn't really matching up to the size of the station, considering this is a massive station. But it looks cool having all these junctions. And there will be, I think I mentioned this before, in fact, yeah, there it is. That'll be the freight terminal location for this part of the map, which will connect up both the East Coast line here and the Great Northern line here. So that's the synopsis kind of out of the way. Let's talk about, as I zoom back into Guard City, in fact, let's go one more, that looks good. Let's talk about train types then. So like I said, we were going to be using a mixture of old generation or first generation DMUs. Not 100% sure which ones are available actually. Let me have a look. I've got to go through and hide all of these locos that I'm not planning on using again. In fact, what type are you? Let me actually just select a depot. Just something else actually that I'm going to come on to. It might be in this episode, it might be in a later episode. How I'm going to redo the depots. Because they do need a bit of an update, let's be honest. So what have we got? Not these. I was about to say definitely not these, but actually might need those for the Transrapid network. Keep going. Somewhere, here we go. Alright, so we're going to have HSTs, of course. The UK in real life is currently getting rid of them. I like them. I think they're awesome, HSTs. So I'm definitely going to be keeping some of those. The 150s. Josh, if you're watching, I know you're a big fan of 150s. So we're going to be having those. We are going to have loco hauled services as well. Mainly on branch lines, but sometimes on the main line. I mean, technically, a Class 91 Intercity 225 is a loco hauled service. It's a push-pull operation. But I'm thinking more like up in the northwest of England, in particular on the line to Barrow-upon-Furness. They do have a pair of Class 37s with 3 carriages between them, and they operate push-pull along that route. And there are other areas of the country where that happens as well. I need to actually go through and see if I can update my my new GRFs, because I'm sure this still only has the one livery. Yeah, it does. When it's not supposed to. It's supposed to have more than that. That's a bit disappointing. What else? I mean, all of these trains, every train you can see on the screen here as I go down, all of these are going to find their way onto the network. You've got things like this, the 302s, the 305s, first generation, or part, I think they're second generation actually, EMUs. They're all going to be used on the network, and we're going to have a slow progression through time until eventually we get up to the 700s, the 800s, the 387s, which are essentially the newest generation of EMUs in England and Scotland and Wales, although there aren't many EMUs in Wales because there's no electrification in Wales. So that's pretty much the trains. We're also going to use some European stock, and again I'll come back to this in a later episode, but it's becoming more of a case now. When I first started this series, I just wanted to use UK type trains, but especially over in Greater Anglia, they are starting to use these Stadler flirts. We've actually got flirts coming to the UK for the first time. I think it's also the first time Stadler have built trains, mass production for the UK as well. And you know, I always thought of the flirts as being European. You know, Switzerland, actually mainly Switzerland. I don't think they, maybe Germany as well. Actually, I think they have some flirts as well. And now they're coming over here. So that tells me that not only the flirts, but also the kisses, the talents, that Lochsberger, I think, something like along those lines, and also the locomotives here, the tracks. It's a very popular locomotive in Europe. I think it's come over to the UK once or twice as a test, but it's not really used much over here. But I think that'd be cool to have operating on the network as well. Basically what I'm saying is I'm not necessarily biased towards British trains anymore. I'm more open to the idea of using other locomotives, because the UK is now fast becoming part of the European rail market, despite the fact that Brexit seems to be happening, which is not good. But you know, CAF are building a factory over here. Stadler are building trains for here. Bombardier still have their factory here. Hitachi now have their factory here up in Newton Aycliffe, where they're building the new Intercity Express trains. So we're going to explore that in this series as well. Look at all the different train types. It will be in the future generation when the series goes towards the more modern stock that we start using those. There will be some lines that will always have old type trains on, and that's very reminiscent of real life, where cascading is a thing. Unfortunately, it tends to be up in the north of England, where they get the hand-me-downs from London, and I know there's a lot of complaints about that, and I think it is quite justified in some respect. But Northern in particular, and Trans-Pennine Express actually, have just put out huge orders for brand new trains, which will also be touched upon in a later episode. Actually, episode 3 I've got it marked down as, where we start talking about that a little bit more. So I'm not going to dwell too much on that now. How long have I been recording for? That's what I should be checking right now. 13 minutes. Okay, I'll try and keep this short. So the last thing I wanted to talk about in this particular episode, in terms of the synopsis, before I get onto a couple of conversation topics, the Jeffries network is going to be reused in its entirety. So, as I said, this is Guard City. You know, we have Guard Lake Station here. Up here we've got Guard City St George. Down this way we've got St Mark, St Thomas, St John, and so on and so forth. I think this has also been rebuilt. I'm not sure if that was rebuilt on a time-lapse video or not. But it sort of looks better than it was. All the infrastructure here is the same. The only real differences to the infrastructure, like I said, is over here on the high-speed line. Because the high-speed line up to... Actually, I think the whole of the high-speed line now has been re-signalled, re-waypointed, and is ready to start running services again. You can see here how I've changed the way the waypoints are structured. I'm tempted to build a new metro station here, in fact. Get rid of this cement plant and build a bridge over here to encourage some housing development. And then, yeah, through here, I've also rebuilt all of these junctions here, so there's some bidirectional tunnels now. I haven't completed that for some reason. I'm not sure why that's the case. I'll have to rebuild the depot approach here. Yeah, I'm really not sure why that's the case, actually. Maybe it's because of something over here that I never got to move to where it needed to be. I think it's something to do with this. So, like, if I extend this tunnel over to this side of the line, then I can reprofile the track here, and then I can build another bridge over the top there. Something like that. And then you see here we've got flyovers and dive unders still. I think that's new. The one over on this side. Oh no, that's not new. It has been rebuilt though. That's right. It's been rebuilt because all these tunnels are bidirectional now. Apart from, I think it's the second from the left. I always make, or the second from the left when you're leaving the station. I've always made it unidirectional, so it's always an outline. Outline. Just got that. Have I signaled this? I'm not sure if I have. I have not. Interesting. I would forget to do that. But yeah, the infrastructure is pretty much the same. Even sort of on the Great Northern Route here, there are some new waypoints and a couple of the junctions have been rebuilt as well. Mainly I've left it as is to an extent because of the freight trains, although that is something I'm going to do as part of the reboot. It's all 1,236 trains are being sent to their depot, and we're going to start again from scratch with a lot of these, and that does include getting rid of certain trains. The freight trains, I think I'm just going to shorten them and then downgrade the locomotive to something a bit more realistic. Although, what are you? You're a Brush AL10. That's not really good advice as to when you were built. That's another thing, actually. I'm not going to set the clock back to 0. Just pretend that it's 0. You can also see we got the time here as well, which I think is pretty cool. Looking forward to that. You can see here, if we just focus on aircraft, and that's also something else to do with timetabling, which again I'll touch on in a future episode. So I've pretty much explained the whole synopsis of this series. I did have a couple of conversation topics. One of them was about train replacement in the UK. All trains of various operators to be replaced. So yes, Greater Anglia are replacing all of their trains by 2021, I think is the deadline. And that includes the Class 90 push-pull services. They're being replaced by, I want to say Adventurers, but I know that's not right. I think it is actually Stadler that are creating those new express trains. And they're all trains of various lengths. So bear with me a second as I try and remember them all. So Bombardier are building new 5 and 10 car Adventurers, which are the same model as the Crossrail trains and the new London Overground trains. And there are also some trains up in the Midlands that are also to be Adventurers. I can't remember the classification. Please don't tell me in the comments. It really doesn't matter at this point. They are Adventurers. That's all you need to know. As well as being part of Greater Anglia, Stansted Express is also having, I think it's 10 car Adventurers built. Actually, I think it's 12 car. 12 car Adventurers are being built for Stansted Express and for Greater Anglia. And then on top of that, as well as the Adventurers, we've also got Stadler Flirts, 3 and 4 car, which are bi-mode. And this is really clever how they've done it. So the pantographs for the electric operation are on the outer ends of the centre. And then in the centre, you've got the control car, passenger car, and then you have this really, it's like a third of the length of the carriage, and it's the power pack car. So it has a corridor in the middle that you can walk through. So the entire train is a walk-through train, open gangways. But this centre, I don't really know what you'd call it. It's just like it's a central articulated segment of the train, and that's where all the diesel engines are contained, and that's where all the diesel power is applied to the train. So I think it is the case of the diesel engines will power generators, which will then power the train. That's what I think is how it's going to work. Otherwise, it's technically, I mean, I suppose it is technically bi-mode, whichever way it uses, but you know, bi-mode, tri-mode, it's a very complicated explanation sometimes. It's not as simple as, oh, it relies on 2 forms of power, because there's lots of trains already that rely on 2 forms of power, but they're technically considered uni-mode. So yeah, Greater Anglia are replacing all of their trains by I'm sure it's 2021. It's 21 or 22. I know that much. Who else? There was another. Oh, Northern. Northern are replacing the vast majority of their trains. Not all of them, but most of them. They are also inheriting Turbo Stars from Scotland and also from London Overground on the Goblin line, Gospel Oak to Barking line. Once the new 710s, I do know what they are. Once the new 710 Adventurers have been introduced, then the existing diesel trains that run on the Gospel Oak to Barking line will be cascaded up to Northern. It's another one of London's hand-me-downs, I'm afraid. Although they're pretty decent trains, so I wouldn't complain too much. And then TransPennine Express are creating the Nova series of trains. You've got Nova 1, Nova 2, Nova 3. Nova 1, let me see if I can remember this. Nova 1, I think, is the Class 68 with the new Mark 5A carriages with a push-pull system in place. Nova 2 is the new Class 1, no, not 193, no, what was it, 379? It might be, actually. It's 3 something. They're being built by CAF. They are electric multiple units. I always say electrical for some reason. Electric multiple units, and they will be introduced from next year, I believe, as will the push-pull, if not December this year. And then Nova 3, they are Class 802s, the same as what are currently being built for GWR. They are bi-mode trains. They will operate on overhead electricity and also from diesel generators. And they are Nova 3s. They're being built by Hitachi. They are part of the Intercity Express program. Technically, they were an add-on order to that existing order. And then the final thing, I suppose, we'll talk about is Transport for Wales. Particularly around Cardiff, they are replacing all of their trains. There is, I believe, electrification going on in Cardiff. They are also building a light rail system through the centre of Cardiff, which will be used by tram trains, which are being built again, I think, by CAF. CAF are also building new trains for Wales in general. Arriva Wales, it currently is being replaced by, I think it is Transport for Wales. I think is what the new scheme is called. It's sort of a hybrid community / franchise partnership, and as part of that, they are also having Class 230s built by Viva Rail. Now, I've mentioned Viva Rail before. I'm a big fan of what they do. They are battery operated, I think, these ones that are going to Wales. Viva Rail are also building trains for the Bedford-Bletchley line, the Marston Vale line, I think it is currently called. It's part of the Varsity line, which should still be being reinstated. I'm not sure where that project is at the moment. But yeah, as part of that transport overhaul in Wales, I think it's 5 Class 230s are being constructed for that new franchise. So Viva Rail are starting to have the orders rolling in now, which I think is great news. It's kind of, I was a bit worried for them at one point. It felt a bit like they meant well, but weren't really getting their fair share of orders. Bedford to Bletchley was the first of the orders, and I think that kind of sparked an interest in Viva Rail and what they're doing, because the trains are perfectly good still. They're old D-stock from the District line, London Underground, and they're perfectly good. They're only halfway through their lifespan, and they were built in the 80s. So that gives you an idea as to how long they can last still. So even as a stopgap, 30 years is a long time. So it's good to see that, you know, Viva Rail are getting the interest in the orders that they deserve, I feel. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. This is probably going to be the only episode of the series in which nothing really happens. It's just me talking to you guys, saying, hey, welcome back, and this is what's going to happen. Next episode, we're actually going to be working with the Rapid Transit system, which is something that I built a little while ago now, that links Moningpool Falls in the west with, I always forget what it's called. It's over here, isn't it? Wenningpool Acidalia, or Acidalia, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it, but yeah, here. This is all going to be gone. by the end of next episode, and all the way down here and down to about here, because the rapid transit is actually going to be redirected to come down to Bar City over here. Maybe serve Bar City Central, I'm not 100% sure yet. And we're also going to curtail it in the center of Guard City as well. So currently it comes in this way via Renston and runs through St. John and then Guard Lake and then St. Michael and then off towards Morningpool Falls. I'm actually going to remove all of the center section here and replace it with something else, and we're going to build a new proper terminus probably on this plot of land here near to Guard City St. John. We do need to make sure that actually that these aren't bus stops that are being served by anything. Doesn't look like they are, so we can do a full rebuild of this little area here and basically move the station, as well as move the station, extend it by a couple of platforms in this direction so that there is a connection between the two St. John's, and that will be the new terminus for our east to west or northwest to southeast rapid transit line. But that's for next time. I'm not sure what the schedule of these episodes are going to be. I'm not sure whether I'm going to do 2 a week like I'm doing with Cities in Motion, or whether or not it's just going to be 1 a week. I'm not sure what time slot I'm going to put it in yet. Considering Cities in Motion is doing quite well where it currently is, I'm tempted to leave that where it is and maybe put this either an hour before or an hour afterwards. And that's where I kind of want you guys to come in and tell me when, if that makes sense, like what day and what time do you guys want to see this series air at. Keep it within reason. Don't say, oh, I want this 4 times a day or anything like that. It's going to be a maximum of twice a week I'll be making episodes. But do let me know how, like which day suits you best. That's probably the best way of saying it. And also what time. Mondays and Fridays are my preference, but don't let that influence you. If you have another option, then feel free to say. And besides that, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this series will last longer than the last one. I think it was 230 something episodes in the end actually, but it's still a long time. But the same rules apply in terms of commenter behaviour. So, you know, don't be overtly negative. Don't always criticise. Don't try and be a smart ass. That won't get you anywhere in life. Never mind on here. Trying to be clever than everyone else will not get you far in life. It'll just make you very unpopular. That's my life lesson for the day, I suppose. And just enjoy the content. Stop worrying about what isn't in the videos and just focus on what is. That's pretty much the moral of the story here. Is just enjoy it, because you never know. One day it might get cancelled again, for whatever reason, and you'll wonder why you didn't just appreciate it while it was around. But yeah, that's about it from me, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. There's no point in me saying if you're enjoying the series, because it's only 1 episode long at the moment. Drop some comments down below with ideas for future episodes. Also check out the naming suggestions, because I will be reactivating that in the very near future. Probably won't be at the time that this goes live, but in the next few weeks. Keep an eye on that. Besides that, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys for your continued support. Hit the bell notification so you never miss an upload. Go over to m4jmedia.com and subscribe to the YouTube calendar so you never miss an upload there. And do share the channel. Share the videos, share the channel, share everything to do with M4J. It's always greatly appreciated. But besides that, again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I will see you soon.